out. Reach out to people, fulfill your calling. It begins today. I think a lot of the times, the devil, instead of getting us to reject what we're called to do, he can get us to put it off, to where we say, well, I'm going to just, God, I'll live for you after high school. And then that's when I'm going off for you, God. That's when I'm going to do it. And then we get out of high school and we say, well, God, after I get out of college, then I'm going to live for you. And I'm going to be sold out 100%. I'm just, me and you, Jesus, we're going to be there. And then you get out of college and you go, oh, well, God, after I get married, then I'm really going to do it. And then after I have kids, and then after my kids grow up, and then after they move out of the house, and then pretty soon you're retired and you haven't done anything. I think that rather than out and out rejecting the call that God has on our lives, a lot of times we procrastinate it until it has the same end, and that's that we never did it. So you've got to translate it. If you get one thing out of this, it's live your faith for God right now. I'm trying to pound that in there. And so translate your walk with the Lord into every day, because that's all we have. And your dreams might not happen exactly how you think, but don't let go. There will be times when there's times of preparation. You don't go from singing in the shower one day to singing in Carnegie Hall the next day. There is a time of preparation, and if you do, you're not going to be very prepared. And I think a lot of times we can say, God, yes, that's it. I want to have big international ministry for you, God. And he might say, well, there's 1 or 2 people right over here. Why don't you talk to them? Or we might say, God, I want to go and I want to reach the homeless and I want to do this. And he says, well, wait a minute. What about that one kid sitting at the lunch table all alone? Have you tried talking to them? Or Lord, I just want to share your love with everyone. And he says, well, what about the person over there that's been rejected, that's struggling with addiction, that nobody talks to? Why don't you start there? And it's when we're faithful in those small things that we are in the preparation ground and getting the training that we need to be faithful in the much. And that's how it starts. The pastor has a time where he has to go to seminary, true. But he's still living for God during those times before he steps into the calling and it's full. The singer, yes, during the training time, it's a time of training. They're not exactly going out fulfilling what they believe their dream is, but they're in the stepping stones to it. So making sure that you're translating every day, doing something for God, doing something towards that calling that you have. And so that's the little, what was going to be a short thought that I wanted to share before I told you about JESUSpolitik, was just that remember to reach out to the people around you, sharing that treasure that's inside of you, and giving them the opportunity to at least choose. At least let them have the opportunity where they could reject the Lord if they wanted to, or they could accept him if they wanted to. And so that being said, I wanted to tell you about our organization. JESUSpolitik is a missions group that the Lord used me to start 3 years ago, so we're pretty young. And what we do is we work with indigenous people groups that want to reach their own people. And what indigenous means is it's the local people. So we're in Mozambique and we're in Indian, so it's local Mozambicans reaching Mozambicans, local Indians reaching Indians. And we take these local ministries that are already trying to reach their own people, we collaborate them with other local ministries in the same area, with bigger groups coming in that need a local contact, and we help them to work together in these collaborative efforts so they can reach more people faster with shared resources for the Lord. And we have 2 projects. The first one is called the Love Maputo Project. We're going to have a clip in a minute, but I want to talk about it first. The Love Maputo Project is in Maputo, Mozambique, and that's the capital city. How many of us in here are under 18 years old? Any of us under 18? Okay. More than half of the country of Mozambique is under 18 years old. So if you imagine an entire country where more than half of the country is your age or younger, that's a really amazing thing. So there's a lot of kids living on the streets faced with the things that come with street life, which a lot of times is drug trafficking, prostitution, theft for survival. And a lot of times the kids aren't orphans, it's just that their parents live so far beneath poverty level that they have to go to the streets to survive. It's the only way to escape. Or it's become so glamorized in their eyes that they want to live on the streets and have that lifestyle. They're looking to it for solutions. And so the 2 groups that we're working with there one is called Masana, which means light, and then the other one is called Kunhain Mela, which means hope. And what Masana does is they bring these kids off the streets. They provide them with food, with water, with clothing, with all of their daily needs, and then they begin to educate them. A lot of them, they left the streets, schools, and they've been on the streets for the last 3 or 4 years. They bring them back up to their education. They bring them back up to speed. They do Bible studies with them. They tell them about the Lord. And then they begin to work to reunite them with their families. Kunhaimela House is a house that is actually working with Masana. We've brought these two groups together. And now Kunhaimela House is actually having these kids that have no families, that have nowhere to go, living in the house, growing up in a Christian environment, a family environment. And so I wanted to show you a video clip so you can see some of the situations that these kids are facing, that they're living in. It's only about 2 minutes, and then I'll tell you a little more.
He works with 52 city kids, ranging from ages 5 to 18. He brings them food, clothing, and the Word of God, so that the love of God may be shown to them. "17 boys live in this abandoned building, which once was a restroom in a park. The boys cook their food in this pot, but it's actually not a pot, it's a paint can. This is their kitchen. This is where they cook their food. They said that one thing they really would like is some pots and pans.
My name is Emmanuel.
Bom dia, Emmanuel.
Bom dia. Aqui, chega aqui, ele faz o que? Nos bate, às vezes tem-nos levado, vai nos meter na cela, sem a gente fazermos nada. Nos deixam lá volta de uma semana, não sei quantos. Depois a gente sempre parece.
We are really suffering here, but every day we are just collecting empty bottles, and then we are sometimes selling them just to get our day bread. You are helping us indeed, but in the evening time, we are facing problem actually the police. Sometimes they are coming, they beat up, and sometimes actually the money you have gone actually they take it, and then sometimes they took us to the police station without actually anything. So really we are really suffering. If we just get any place, any safe place actually, we could just really be happy.
This is Fernando. Both of his parents died of sickness, and he's been living on his own for 3 years. He survives by selling bottles that he picks up off the street. This is Sebastian. He too has no family members, so he's living on his own, and he sells bottles for survival as well. This is Augustine, Alfredo, and Azaria. Augustine is 12 years old. He's been living on his own for 2 years. Alfredo was abandoned by his family when he was 11 years old. Azaria was being beaten by his father, so he left for the streets to start a new life. All three of these boys survive as couriers for drug dealers, but they're more like drug trafficking slaves.
So the man whose face it showed initially, he was one of our initial missionaries that began the Love Maputo Project. As I said, we work with the local Mozambicans, reaching Mozambicans, empowering them to reach their own people. And since then, we've had this group I told you about, Masana, which means light, and Kunhaimela, which means hope. Join in. So we have this collaboration of local groups. And remember how we were talking about earthen vessels earlier? These cruddy Taco Bell cups that we call bodies that have the treasure of Jesus Christ inside. I want to tell you about the difference that one person can make. Pastor Paulo is who started Masana. It's one of the main groups that we're working with now. He started out of the Reformed Church of Mozambique, and he woke up one day with a dream, and he said, you know, I want to reach out to our own people. I want to reach out to the kids that are living in the streets, have nowhere to go, that are sleeping, you know, all around our church. And it started as an outreach ministry of that church, and from there it began to grow, and they added in the education component, and then they added in the Bible studies and the food and the water and the clothing, and then they said, okay, we've got to get these kids with families, and they started researching, and they would find the families they've been separated from, some separated for years, and bring them back into the families, show the families how to function together again, either by starting like a mini business to support themselves. Some of them started groceries, and some of them started mechanics shops and things like that, or they would take the kids if they didn't have a family to go back to and bring them into a safe house.